Welcome to the 2020 Georgia First Amendment Foundation Charles L. Weltner Freedom of Information Celebration. I'm Jim Zachary, and on behalf of the Board of Directors, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate your support of the First Amendment, and we appreciate you working with us today to join us for a virtual event as we celebrate the First Amendment Foundation and recognize heroes and defenders of our liberty. The event that we're doing today and the work that we do throughout the year is made possible by our very generous sponsors. I want to take just a second to recognize CNN, Kirkpatrick, Townsend, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Griffiths Family Fund, Kaplan Cobb, Jones Day, KB Media, and LexisNexis. Thank you for your support of the foundation and for your support of the First Amendment. We also want to remind you to stick around for a chance to win an original Mike Lukovich cartoon drawn especially for this event. I'd like Richard Griffiths, our President Emeritus, and a man that many of you know is the face and the voice of the Georgia First Amendment Foundation. Richard, where are we on our drawing for the Lukovich cartoon?
Well, as of right now, we are looking at $500 is the bid. And can you see the image here? Am I showing up? Yeah, there we go. So there it is, beautiful pen and ink, gorgeous, gorgeous image. Roaches scurrying away from the light of the media, with one of them happening to shout fake news. So what could be better than that?
Absolutely. So you want to stick around for the drawing, and what a beautiful piece of artwork and what fitting messaging for the mission of the Georgia First Amendment Foundation. Once again, we want to talk about why we are here today and why the First Amendment Foundation is here at all. Hear these words. These are the words that define our mission. These are the words that call us all to action. These are the words that bring us all here today with common purpose and common cause. These are the words that we all, and we are sure that all of you, believe in. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. In just 45 words, the founders guaranteed 5 basic freedoms, part and parcel of American liberty. In those protections, they implied what some have called the 6th freedom. They've implied full and complete access to government. It stands to reason. If the press and the people are able to hold government accountable and to freely speak out and to petition the government, then we ought to have full and complete access to all of the actions of government and all of the documents held by our government. Jefferson called information the currency of democracy. Jefferson, Madison, and those that were Confederate with them feared that an unchecked federal government might quickly forget that the only powers that government has are those powers which are given to it by the people. They feared that a tyrannical British monarchy might in time be replaced by an unchecked, unrestrained, undisciplined, unhinged American leader, even a president. So they guaranteed these basic freedoms to protect our rights, to protect our liberty, even in 2020. What we do at the First Amendment Foundation has always mattered. What we do at the First Amendment Foundation has always been important, but it's never mattered more, and it's never been more important than it is at this very moment. Our most basic freedoms, our freedom of expression, the rights of an open, free, and unfettered press, the public's right to know, and the fundamental American right to protest and to speak out against government are all under assault, most especially the freedom of expression and of the press and the basic rights of protest. Nothing could be more American than to protest peacefully. The Georgia First Amendment Foundation is the only nonprofit organization in the state of Georgia solely dedicated to protecting these basic freedoms. Today, the state of the First Amendment is that she is under attack, and we are all set for the defense of liberty. As part of our mission, the foundation advocates for government transparency, for free speech, for access to public information, and to all government deliberations. This year has been a marquee year for the foundation. We've been standing strong with peaceful protesters. We've been standing up for free speech, and we have been standing out in our advocacy for the public's right to know. So now, for just a few minutes, we're going to ask you to indulge us as we are joined by Dale Russell and Fox 5 Atlanta, highlighting an unbelievable year in defense of and celebration of the First Amendment.
2020 has been an extraordinary year in Georgia's civic life, and your Georgia First Amendment Foundation played an important role in some of the year's biggest stories. The coronavirus pandemic forced local governments to switch to virtual meetings, and Georgia First Amendment was there to advocate for public access. We later held a virtual town hall for public officials on how to honor Georgia's open meetings law during the pandemic. The pandemic also exposed limits to release of government information about the virus. Georgia First Amendment Foundation argued for greater transparency from government agencies, raised the issue with the Attorney General, and hosted a panel of journalists and experts to discuss the topic. The Ahmaud Arbery shooting, captured on video, led to a GBI investigation, arrests, and highlighted the importance of video in police investigations. The First Amendment Foundation advocated for greater and faster public access to law enforcement videos. The death of George Floyd led to weeks of protests across the country, including Georgia. First Amendment Foundation provided a tip sheet for protesters, advising them of their rights.
She's with the AJC!
And when journalists were detained by police during a protest, the First Amendment Foundation joined with other First Amendment and media organizations in a cry of condemnation. We also joined a nationwide call for greater access to police misconduct records. And throughout this year of tremendous change, the Foundation drew attention to the role First Amendment rights play in our democracy, highlighting the importance of open records in the Arbery investigation, citizens' rights to protest peacefully, the public's right to record in public spaces, and our constitutionally granted rights to attend public meetings and court proceedings where officials wield the power given to them by the people. This year, we also have celebrated the legacy of the late Congressman John Lewis, who devoted his life to the constitutional rights of all citizens. The First Amendment Foundation awarded Congressman Lewis the Weltner Freedom of Information Award in 2012, and we mourn his passing.
We'll be talking more about the incredible contributions of John Lewis in just a few moments. For now, we want to thank Fox 5 and Dale for an amazing presentation highlighting the work that we do throughout the year. I'm honored now to bring back Richard Griffiths as he pays tribute to this year's First Amendment heroes.
Hey there, I'm apparently muted, not muted, but my video has stopped working for some reason, but I should be able to at least convey what we're laying out here. 19-year-old activist Zoe Bambara leveraged our First Amendment right peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances when she led an effort to organize peaceful demonstrations against racial injustice. She got the permits, put the word out on social media, and ultimately, she says, she watched in amazement as thousands of protesters marched with her to the state capitol. That May 29th protest was the beginning of a movement that sparked real change in Georgia. 2 months later, our state's first hate crimes law took effect. And in a conversation, Zoe Bambara shared what and who inspired her to action.
Of course, we had Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor. And I didn't see anything happening in Atlanta, which is weird because usually Atlanta is what they call like the civil rights mecca, basically. So I was like, wow, nothing's happening in Atlanta. And my mom always told me if nobody else is doing it, you do it. Of course, it's our First Amendment right to protest and to assemble and things like that. And so I knew that, and I was looking up peaceful protest guidelines. I just didn't want anyone else to get hurt, so I was trying to look at the guidelines. So I just preached, on and on that, this is our city. We're not going to destroy our city. I just kept saying that over and over again. Honestly, I was never really into politics to begin with. So a lot of stuff I thought was already into play, and because I thought it was just common sense. But my mom always says common sense is not all that common. So I was like, okay, well, so when I found that out, I was like, whoa, this wasn't even already a bill. And people were like, yeah, and they were sending me the bill. Like we were all looking, I was like, wow, because you would just think, but we also are in Georgia. So we take a little bit longer to do, I guess, quote unquote, the right thing.
The Georgia First Amendment Foundation is delighted to honor Zoe Bambara for her leadership in exercising her First Amendment rights by organizing peaceful protest in an effort to bring about positive social change. It's my understanding that she is watching today with her family here in Atlanta. We're recognizing the late Georgia Representative Jay Powell for his important role in ushering an expansion of Georgia's sunshine laws through the General Assembly. The resulting laws improve Georgians' access to open meetings, to government meetings, proceedings, records, and importantly, gave governments across Georgia the legal framework needed to pivot to publicly accessible virtual meetings this year. The updates Representative Powell and then Attorney General Sam Olens successfully advocated for in 2012 modernized Georgia's open meetings and open records acts and gave them the teeth needed to deter efforts to restrict the public's right to know. When I spoke to Sam Olens about Representative Powell, Olens explained how Powell worked his legislative magic.
So when we were going to the Judiciary Committee to ask for their support and for their recommendation to move it to the full House, it was really essential that you had someone with Jay's prior history and his credentials. So much so that when it left the State House Judiciary Committee and easily passed the State House, we had hardly any opposition in the State Senate. Now, having said that, he twisted some arms earlier in the process. I mean, he went up to me to negotiate more with local government. He went up to the press to negotiate more with me. So he wanted to be an honest broker, and he was an honest broker. And as we got closer, he actually got a little excited about it because he could see where this could possibly come to fruition in 2012, and it did.
We at the Georgia First Amendment Foundation are pleased to honor the late Jay Powell with the First Amendment Hero Award for his work strengthening Georgia's open records and open meetings laws. Last but not least, the foundation applauds the Supreme Court of Georgia for vision and leadership that have allowed the courts in our state to remain operational and open to the public during COVID-19. A years in the making pandemic plan, championed by Chief Justice Harold Melton, has allowed courts to keep performing essential functions and hold many proceedings online to protect public's health while enabling public access. The court's step-by-step Georgia Courts Reopening Guide is a crucial resource as courts move towards resumption of jury trials and grand jury proceedings. In a recent conversation, Chief Justice Melton volunteered how years ago, when then Chief Justice Leo Ward Sears assigned him the task of coordinating the pandemic planning, he was pretty skeptical.
Yeah, it was a decade before the pandemic. And frankly, when she asked me to do it, it wasn't on my list of priorities. You know, anybody that's busy doing work, doing anything on a daily basis can think of things that they need to be doing instead of planning for something that may or may not happen. But, you know, once we got involved in the process and met with the healthcare professionals, it became really interesting work. And I became convinced that this was a serious threat that we had to be ready for. For us, when the pandemic hit, there was a great deal of panic initially, and it was immeasurably comforting to know that there had been some thoughtful, intentional thoughts and planning that took place outside of a panic mode that we could kind of rest upon. And so it got us going until we were able to get our COVID sea legs underneath us to where we could start planning the next phase and the next set of questions. So it was immeasurably important and immeasurably helpful, not just to our court, but to the judiciary as a whole.
For foresight and 10 years of thoughtful pandemic planning from Chief Justice Leo Ward Sears through Chief Justice Harold Melton, to help maintain confidence in Georgia's whole judiciary, we at the Georgia First Amendment Foundation are pleased to present a First Amendment Hero Award to the justices and staff of the Georgia Supreme Court. And we're pleased to note that we're joined today by Chief Justice Melton, Presiding Justice David Namias, Justice Michael Boggs, Justice Nels Peterson, Justice Charlie Bethel, and Justice Carla McMillan. Congratulations to all the honorees and the positive contributions they have made to the state of Georgia. Now I'd like to take a pause for a moment and take a look here at where we are in the bidding. The next bid up is $550 for this Mike Lunkovich. So go online, place your bid, help the Georgia First Amendment Foundation, and decorate your walls. Now I'd like to turn over the electronic podium to Cobb Commissioner and First Amendment Foundation Board Member Lisa Cupid as we remember Weltner honoree John Lewis.
It is an honor to pay tribute to the life and legacy of the iconic Congressman John Lewis. He is a 2012 honoree of the Georgia First Amendment Foundation's Freedom of Information Award, as well as Freedom Rider and Freedom Fighter for voting rights, equality, and simply doing what is right. Whether participating in sit-ins, marching, or peacefully protesting, Lewis embodied the freedoms and rights all Americans have under the First Amendment. His good trouble and courage paved the way for me to serve in public office and to continue the mission to ensure access to government for all of our citizens. Please join me in observing a video in his honor.
The two memories that I have, one is going to Washington and being with him in his office and interviewing him there, but it was on the eve of the opening of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which, as you guys know, was something that he worked on for years. And there was somebody, when he would introduce the bill, kept getting shot down. And so to finally have it come true, it was awe-inspiring to be in his office, because every single corner of that place is living history. I mean, pictures with presidents, pictures of him speaking at the March on Washington, just, pamphlets, just different things, that encompass the richness of his life. But I think we all know that feeling of wanting something for so long, working for something for so long, and finally seeing it come to fruition. And he had that feeling.
Even his Atlanta office, I remember one of the first things that I was drawn to in that office, with all of his awards, accolades, photographs of him with dignitaries on display, the one thing that really struck me was that he had cotton in his office, right? To remind him of where he came from, because he never wanted to forget. And he didn't want anybody else to forget that at the end of the day, he was, the boy preacher from Troy, right? Like, he wanted people to know that about him, and he was humble.
There was this event that Congressman Lewis would have every year. It was a multicultural event, kind of like, I think the tagline was uniting the beloved community through arts and culture and song, or something like that. And so one year I was fortunate enough to MC this event. It was held outside at a park. And it was so very cool to kind of just see him in his element, because everybody will tell you he would stop for pictures, he would take pictures, he would talk to people. But this was shortly after that clip went viral of him where he was dancing to the song Happy. And so somebody put the song on, and right in the middle of the thing, in his suit and tie, he just starts dancing. He told me, stop the program, had me come over. We all started dancing together to this song. And fortunately, I have pictures of it, but that was one of just the most special moments. But I really think that was just a testament to who he was. Like, you've seen these clips of him dancing and just being happy in the moment. And I will tell you that absolutely happened. He stopped the program, we all started dancing, and then we went right back to the program. So that was a special moment.
We often forget that the civil rights movement was carried out by ordinary people, right? John Lewis was an ordinary person who dared to be extraordinary and confronted the unacceptable to change the course of human history for all of us. And so I think that is the main takeaway that I have.
I think it was very significant that John Lewis's last public appearance was at the Black Lives Matter Plaza, and that the day of his funeral, the New York Times and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution published his final words. And those final words were to get out there and be active and to vote and to say, I think that what he was saying is that, if you notice in his last letter, that he didn't mention the Edmund Pettus Bridge, he didn't mention getting beaten, he didn't mention his life in Congress. He talked about carrying on and moving past all of this to continue moving forward. And I think with all the speeches from Barack Obama to Zenona Clayton, to everybody, the bottom line was that to keep the fire going, to vote, and that if you do those things, then you will honor his legacy.
Reports of Congressman Lewis's demise were exaggerated, for a while until it actually happened. And, we finally got the call that Friday when it was sounding real. I was really starting to think, okay, well, maybe this actually happened. But it was like 11 at night. And I said, well, all right, if this is real, Ambassador Young is going to be awake when I call his phone. If I call him and he answers, then John Lewis has really passed away, because he's going to be awake because people are going to be calling him. And sure enough, I called, and his wife answered the phone, Miss Carolyn, and she immediately just handed the phone over. And I was just like, okay, well, if he's up, then that means that this is true. And so then for the next 15 minutes, I just, was crying while Andrew Young was talking. I was not interviewing him, actually. I was just kind of trying to get information, but was not really in any state to do that. But one of the things that Ambassador Young said before we hung up was, that if he had to sum up John Lewis in one sentence, it was that there is real power in genuine humility, which is who John Lewis absolutely was, right? And that is really what his legacy is, and a testament to his life.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you to the members of the press club and for all those that were responsible for this very fitting tribute. the First Amendment Foundation is very proud to have recognized John Lewis for his great contributions. So we also lost another friend to the First Amendment this past year, and we would like to remember longstanding board member Tom Budlong, who is one of the Georgia First Amendment Foundation's first members. Tom served our organization for more than 2 decades as a secretary, as the official record keeper, as a Weltner Bank organizer, and a staunch protector of First Amendment principles. We'd like for you to join us.
Tom Budlong was a librarian who advocated for the rights of his patrons to access information. Tom was also a leader among his peers, serving as the chair of the Intellectual Freedom Roundtable of the American Library Association and on the executive board of the Georgia Library Association. Tom's leadership helped win this foundation recognition for our work towards the cause of intellectual freedom. He was an individual activist as well. Tom filed a 2007 lawsuit that argued Georgia's sales tax exemptions for religious publications were unconstitutional under the First Amendment. He won. Retired board member Carolyn Carlson and current board member Holly Manheimer remember Tom's commitment to the people's right to know.
He always wanted to make sure that his patrons understood their rights under the First Amendment, and that they understood what they could do for their patrons and what they had to do as librarians to protect their patrons' free expression rights.
Tom was fearless and he was so committed. Some of us waffle or waver in our commitment. Never Tom. He was a purist. And I can't recall enough times when he would tell me, Holly, we have to expand the mission of the First Amendment Foundation. There is so much work to be done. I think he would want to be remembered as a purist, as someone who was a true believer, and someone who was a motivator, who because of his commitment inspired others to become more committed.
Thank you again, Richard. And of course, thank you to Carolyn and to Holly. As a value added part of today's program, you will notice in the chat screen that we're providing links to content that can provide you additional information about some of the people and the issues that we're discussing today. And talking about issues, some of the most important work that the First Amendment Foundation does throughout the year, every year, is our advocacy with the First Amendment and working with the Georgia legislature. This year, that work has been greatly augmented by one of our board members, Sarah Brewerton Palmer, who has taken on our legislative agenda. And Sarah is going to join us now and talk about our legislative agenda for the coming year. Sarah, we're glad to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Jim. 2020 has been a landmark year. It began with the spread of the coronavirus, a once-in-a-century pandemic that has altered almost every aspect of our daily lives. In the late spring, high-profile police killings around the country led to nationwide protests of racism, the likes of which we have not seen in 60 years. These events have tested all of us in different ways. And as the Georgia First Amendment Foundation has witnessed over the past 8 months, they've also tested our system of government. In many cases, government officials have risen to the occasion. When the lockdowns began in March, agencies around the state scrambled to figure out how to move government meetings online. Officials sought out advice from us, from the Attorney General's office, on how to do this effectively. They attended GFAF trainings to learn about ways to hold open meetings during a pandemic. They consulted with government attorneys, researched video platforms, and generally they made it work. But of course, times of stress also reveal the weak spots in our system of government. And GFAF has borne witness to a number of those this year. For example, we've heard from an increasing number of citizens whose access to public meetings is being restricted, whether by faulty meeting notices, excessive use of executive sessions, or technological failures that make online meetings inaccessible to the public. In addition, we're hearing from many Georgians, particularly parents, about the challenges of obtaining public health data about COVID infection rates in communities and schools. The foundation has also noticed gaps in the enforcement of the Open Records Act when it comes to statewide agencies, as the law charges the Attorney General both with enforcing the law and with defending state agencies accused of violating it, creating an inherent conflict. GFAF has been working with citizens and reaching out to public agencies to try to fix these problems all year. The Black Lives Matter movement and related protests have also made us here at the Foundation reflect on the ways that we can foster justice through greater transparency in Georgia's agencies, including law enforcement. In recent years, police dashboard cameras and body cameras have become nearly ubiquitous, and the recordings they make have become increasingly important in helping the public understand and assess situations where officers have used force. Yet, under current Georgia law, those videos don't have to be disclosed to the public until the investigation of an incident is complete. And in some cases, disclosure of the videos may not happen until years after the incident has taken place. This erodes both the public's right to know and citizen trust in law enforcement. Our society functions best when the public has free and open access to information about what its government is doing. The General Assembly has codified this guiding principle in the Open Records Act. And while the law allows some exceptions when there's good reason to do so, we must now recognize that we don't have a good reason to hide video recordings of police officers using force against citizens. The public deserves to see these videos and judge the incidents for themselves. This is something that even those in law enforcement believe would be a change for the better. For example, last week, during a First Amendment Foundation panel discussion, GBI Director Vic Reynolds told the audience that in his view, waiting to release such video until an investigation or prosecution has ended, potentially years after the incident, is not healthy for our society and not the way that things should work. We agree with Director Reynolds. Increasing transparency around these videos would mean greater accountability for law enforcement agencies and would eventually foster a greater sense of trust in our institutions. To that end, in the upcoming legislative session, GFAF will encourage lawmakers to consider reducing or eliminating the time the police video can be kept secret from the public. The Foundation plans to work with legislators and stakeholders from across the political spectrum to introduce legislation that would make some important changes to Georgia law. First, we will urge legislators to make the investigation file of any police use of force incident available to the public no more than 180 days after an incident has taken place. Second, we will ask lawmakers to require law enforcement officers to disclose within 21 days all video and audio recordings of an incident where someone has filed a complaint about officer misconduct. And third, we'll encourage the General Assembly to enshrine into law the citizens' right to make audio and video recordings of police activity. The Foundation will be working very hard to get these ideas passed into Georgia law, as we believe that they will help all Georgians continue to scrutinize our government and will lead to greater trust in our institutions. Please keep an eye out for our newsletters and our website with some suggestions on how you can help us accomplish our legislative goals next year. We're also very interested in feedback from you about these goals. If you have comments now, please share them in the chat function you see on your screen, or send us an email anytime at info@gfaf.org. We look forward to a productive year under the Gold Dome in 2021, and we thank you for your support of GFAF's open government mission.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think you can all probably see now why we are so excited about the work that Sarah is doing with the Georgia First Amendment Foundation. We have a lot of longtime supporters of and participants in the work that the First Amendment Foundation does, but we also have a lot of new people with us. And we hope that today that we've been able to give you some deeper insight into the important work that the foundation is doing for the people of Georgia throughout the year and every year. So now, probably the moment that at least some of you have been waiting for, Richard Griffiths is going to join us once again. And Richard, what can you tell us about the Lukovich cartoon?
Well, we have apparently a winner. The bid amount is for $500, and the apparent winner is someone who holds that media flashlight, Sean McIntosh of the AJC, where she is editorial director, and she is a former board member of our organization. So very pleased to see Sean win that. I'm sure it will be on her office wall.
Congratulations, Sean. We can't think of any better place for that to be than in your office. So we really appreciate all of you that bid, and know that all of these proceeds support the work that we do to defend the First Amendment, to protect the public's right to know, and to stand up for free speech. There are so many people that we would like to thank and need to thank, not the least of which were the sponsors that we recognized at the beginning of today's event. We also want to thank our great partners at APG for the technical support they gave us today and for the work that they do to support the foundation throughout the year. I want to thank again Dale Russell and Fox 5 for their great video tribute. Of course, I want to thank my friend and colleague Richard Griffiths, Lisa Cupid, Carolyn Carlson, Holly Manheimer, Sarah, Ken Foskett, who chaired this year's event, and you'll see his name on the screen. He's working behind the scenes today, but the heavy lifting that he did to make this all possible is deeply appreciated, as is that of our entire team at the Georgia First Amendment Foundation. We are also honored today by the presence and the continued support of the Charles L. Weltner family. We thank all of you for joining us today. We encourage you to keep fighting the good fight as we stand together to proclaim, defend, and protect the First Amendment. Have a great afternoon.